Here we are.
Live from the Plutopia News Network, this is the Plutopia Happy Hour. And gosh darn it, we're happy as clams today. Are clams
Look at that.
happy? we have our beverages. Everyone should have a good beverage, don't you think, Maggie? That's Maggie Duvall. She has a beverage, and she's in Taos, New Mexico. They have lots of nice beverages up there. Over in South Austin, that's John Lebkowski. I know he has several beverages standing by.
I actually do.
What is your beverage of the day, John?
I have a nice Trinity Zinfandel.
Mm.
Zinfandel Alexander Valley Estate from Sonoma County. And a glass of water. And believe it or not, it's potable water. This is something that's become increasingly rare in Austin.
Right.
Well, I'm out here in the country where we don't have Austin water. We have well water, and well, it tastes like well.
Does it make you well?
Not yet, but I have my beverage here, a nice Sonoma County Cabernet, Highway 12.
The night for Sonoma County, I guess.
Yes.
Right.
So, with that slurp, what are we doing here? Oh, we're waiting for
Shanties.
we're waiting for guests,
We're waiting for a guest, but
or
we can
not.
certainly kick off a conversation. And Maggie certainly brought up something today that's worth talking about. Maggie, you want to talk about
Absolutely, she should.
slum landlords and such?
Well, it's more interesting about what was I saying, that the dearth of housing is, there's a lot of places like Taos and all that where there are some laws in place to put a cap on the number of short-term rentals, but there seems to be a lot of finger pointing at the wrong place, because the average Joe or Jane renting like a portion of their home or a casita on their land or whatever, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. The problem are these private funds buying up all the available stock and then reselling it or renting at these really high rentals. And it's happening all across the country. And I've been reading article after article about it for like over a year now, and tried to bring it up. And so many people are like, it's like, wait a minute. This is sort of like, this has the same kind of outrage feeling to me as that corporations or people.
Well, I mean, there's several things going on. I know that corporations are definitely buying up tons of properties, but some of them they're buying for conventional long-term rentals and some for short-term rentals. I know in Austin, anybody who owns a house is inundated weekly with offers of offers, I should say. People saying, I can give you cash for your house. And of course, they're not going to pay you as much as you would get if you went through a more conventional real estate process where you actually had a realtor looking out for you. They're in the interest of buying as cheaply as they can, and they're looking at a market that's really hot, and they're looking at properties that have appreciated like crazy. I mean, homes here are doubling, maybe even tripling in value. So that, that kind of thing gets people excited. But this short-term rental thing here in Austin has been a controversy for years.
Especially at South by time.
Yeah. And a decade ago, I think it's been that long. Marcia and I did at one time have a short-term rental that was not in Austin. It was rural. It was at Inks Lake. But we knew some people locally who had short-term rentals, and they suddenly found themselves assailed by neighborhood associations that basically wanted to tell them that they could not make short-term rentals, and they were being concerned about things like parties, people renting a place and having a party, or I don't know. One of the crazier things that we heard is, well, some pedophile could rent the house and come into the neighborhood and booger the neighborhood children, which was, extremely unlikely. But what the real issue was that there was at least a potential for a neighborhood to cease to be a set of homeowners and become increasingly dominated by rental properties that were being used either for long-term or short-term rentals. And, that could be detrimental to the sense of community in those places. So that's kind of part of the thing that we've seen here.
Well, the whole thing with receiving all those demands to buy, I don't get requests to buy my property. I get demands. It's like, you've got to sell. You're an idiot if you don't sell in this market. It's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm out in the country, but I'm in a part of the country that's about to be inundated by Samsung putting in a $17 billion silicon chip fab there, and it's not going to be too fab for us who just really don't want to be inundated by by civilization, really. But we've had I was telling John about a thing that happened in our neighborhood just right up the highway. There was a piece of a property that was going to be developed into nice homes with trees around it, and they were supposed to be nice, not mansions or anything, but this property was suddenly purchased by a member of government in Elgin, which is just north of there, and they decided they were going to turn it into a double-wide, community where you could have nothing but manufactured homes, and that's something that's happening in a lot of places because they're just basically developing the land, getting it all set up to where it could become a nice housing development, because it's really easy to evict people when they're in a manufactured home. All you need is a flatbed truck and you haul them all away. And these people are getting contracts to say, well, you don't really own the property. You're kind of here until we decide not to let you be here.
Well, and that's like a lot of this too with these faceless corporate entities buying up apartment buildings, like what you're talking about, Scoop, too. And the thing is that if there's any kind of issue in the home or the apartment rental, they can't get a hold of anybody, or say that like you're having a hard time this 1 month and you're trying to get a hold and say like, hey, my parent was in the hospital or whatever, and now I can pay. I couldn't then, but I can pay now, and you can't get a hold of anybody, and then they evict you anyway. It's just this kind of, it's like these. It reminds me of those, huge machines like with the tracks going over the skulls in the Terminator. It's like this. It's this extraction model. It's like they're squeezing everything out of this market, and there's all the housing like here. Any house that, it used to be you could rent from somebody, you could rent a house or you could rent a whatever, and it's a local owner. What they're doing is they're coming in and buying all the available housing, and then they get tax breaks if they're sitting empty, or, it's too expensive, or they'll fix it up and, sell it at a way higher. It's like artificially inflating the market, and it's happening everywhere. And so I think there's this breaking point coming because no one can afford to live anywhere. So where's everybody going to go? And it's not just, these homeless people, that are drug addicts or something.
Well,
this stereotypical thing. There's people that are, are living less than paycheck to paycheck. And so many people are like that. And they've been holding on by their fingernails because there's been some kind of relief, but that's going away now. So I'm like, what are we going to do with all this? This is going to like cave in on itself. I mean, this is everywhere.
There's a fundamental belief, kind of fundamental to capitalism, I guess, that a person who owns a piece of property almost has a duty to exploit it in some way.
Right.
That you should be exploiting the things that you own. And it's true that it's kind of like snowballing. The thing that I was thinking about is we have, this concept of the 1% of people who have most of the money, and the middle class shrinking, fewer and fewer people having enough money to get by. How much money are the 1% going to have when nobody can buy anything from them anymore?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or it could be that they're fixed and they're not worried about it. They say, well, let it collapse.
Well, San Francisco's become a poster child for that whole situation. My friend Paul Mavrides is a great comic artist and serious, artist in San Francisco. He's lived out in the Tenderloin, the Mission District, of San Francisco for many, many years, and I'd always go and visit him in his area, and he's just been writing about the total devastation of not just the lower class, but middle class, and what he calls the bro class, the bro tech class has taken over, and if it doesn't meet their needs, they buy it, they destroy it, and they put up something else. There used to be great theaters in San Francisco.
Right.
I used to go to the Castro Theater, and it's gone.
What?
Yeah, all the theaters are going
Oh
away.
no!
Replaced by trendy restaurants and
Oh no!
and trendy offices, and it's just all the things that I went to San Francisco many, many years ago to enjoy, they're gone. Yeah,
it's happening in Austin too.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere. My friends in Dallas, they've lost a lot of things that used to be, really nice reasons to be in Dallas. In my opinion, not a lot of reasons to be in Dallas, but there were a few. Same with Houston. Houston's become very corporatized. The Montrose district, where I used to live when I was working at KPFT, that was a great place.
Right.
We had Anderson Fair restaurant where you could see the great folk singers of Texas and the United States. Actually, everybody came there, and we could walk down and hear great folk music and country music and rock just in the neighborhood. And that's gone. It's all condos now.
Right. Yeah, there's like there's this massive divide between the extractive and the just all each person for themselves, and then there's the other side that's like, okay, we're gonna have to do something about this ourselves, right? Which is good in a sense, but there's just this lack of empathy, this lack of sense of community, of care, of kindness. It's just all about how much you can get and how clever you are at getting all that. And it turns all of so many of our stomachs, right? But I certainly don't have the answers, but the system just seems to be going into entropy. And I again, like John was mentioning, I don't know how it can sustain itself. It's going to collapse in on itself. I mean, how many empires have we seen over the centuries collapse?
The Empire Strikes Out.
Right.
Look back to 2005, 2006, when real estate markets all over just totally collapsed. Mm-hmm. I was tracking all of that online. When I saw it beginning to happen, that's when I sold out in the Bay Area and moved out here, because I knew the end was near, and 2 or 3 months later, it just fell apart out there. All sorts of big companies were suddenly no longer companies at all. Right. They had invested in overpriced real estate and become strung out with the big drug addiction out there was buying overpriced property, and they suddenly overdosed and all these companies died. And that's going to happen again. You see it happening in some industries already. Look what you remember, Sears Roebuck and Company.
Right.
They were killed by hedge funds buying it up, buying it, selling it, buying it, selling it, to where they finally ended up with so much debt that they couldn't exist anymore. They used to be the largest
Retailer.
retailer.
Yeah.
I knew I'd come with the word eventually.
Right.
And they just fell apart because people got greedy and they were playing, monopoly with these
Right.
companies.
Right. Right.
Well, it's a good question what people should be doing right now. Kind of like ordinary people who can see that uh, uh, there's a kind of bubble forming. I mean, you think of a bubble as being about a specific thing, like a real estate bubble or a financial bubble, but this is more like a social bubble, and it feels
it's
like
like
it's going to pop.
Yeah, an existential bubble of some
An
kind.
existential bubble.
Yeah, and
bubble.
it's I have to track this down. You know how sometimes you'll just see a headline kind of flash by and it's like, oh, I'll track that later. But I saw something the other day about because of COVID and folks like feeling isolated and all that, and there's just been this frenzy kind of as we're coming out of it to buy really special things for yourself and just like spend, get a fancy new house, fancy new car. So there's this massive debt bubble building at the same time. I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun.
I bought a chainsaw.
Maggie, I'm fascinated by your kitty there. Your kitty is looking at you and probably, I don't know if Kitty could hear us as well, giving that look like, what the hell are you people going on about? All you need is a few mice to chase.
That's right.
Some shiny toys to bat around and a nice comfy couch and some slave to sit there and scratch
your
your
litter box.
There.
I've been trying to get our cat to have a discussion with the squirrels that are in the chimney. I'm not sure what to do about that. There's something in there making noise, and I called an animal extractor kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he basically said, well, there's not much I can do. He said, it's been long enough that the animal probably doesn't have the strength to climb out, even if we drop a rope down there. So there's no other way to get to it, really, if it's trapped in the chimney. But I don't know whether it's trapped or maybe just living there, maybe moved some furniture in and
right.
Bought some cigars and got a bottle of wine and is just relaxing there.
At the treehouse, there was I think there were ground squirrels, down like burrowing in. So,
yeah, in our neighborhood, you have to have a cap on your chimney with, it's a screening thing. It's basically to keep the sparks from your fire from going out, but also it's to keep the wildlife from coming in and
right.
setting up, accommodations in your living room.
Well, we have such a thing on our chimney, but I'm not sure what has happened to it. Apparently, they can chew through those things.
Yeah, or loose something or other that they're getting in, like a loose brick, or maybe they, like they've already taken the brick out and then they're fooling you because they put the brick back in, to hide the doorway that they're getting in.
It sounds very familiar. I think I saw this whole plot in a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Right. Yeah.
Those squirrels, they got away with a lot. And I found that squirrels out here are way smarter than I am. I've tried to keep them off of the porch, and they're just like, no, go away. It's our porch.
Well, the good part of this is the guy
that I haven't had a lot of is squirrel because I'm not in the trees, right? So I kind of miss the squirrels, but I have plenty of magpies. So
we'll send you some squirrels.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
The guy told me that so the animal. He said, well, it'll die in there. And I said, well, what do we do then? He says, well, you have to get some construction person to come dismantle your fireplace and get the squirrel out. This did result in an ambitious conversation about completely restructuring our house, which I won't get into, but it involved removing the fireplace altogether.
Oh, man.
You don't want to do that.
Well, it's not usable anyway. It doesn't draw very well. So what the hell? Let's get rid of the fireplace and we'll just build a little fire in the backyard.
Right.
Maybe set fire to the neighbor's house or something.
That'll work. Yeah. The whole thing of having a fireplace, though, given our recent experiences with cold weather,
it's true.
The only people in my neighborhood that are making any big bucks right now are the people that were we're selling firewood to all the locals prior to the big freeze.
Right, right.
Well, I will remind you, I said earlier, I have a chainsaw and I have lots of trees. So there is that possibility, I guess. We'll have to figure out how to get the chimney to draw with the squirrel in it. Oh my God.
Well, I don't know. Squirrels. Dead squirrels probably are combustible at some point.
I always hated it when I was living in Colorado and in our house, and you'd like so many houses in the West, you'd hear a mouse running through the walls, right? Like, and that was weird enough, like when you're trying to get to sleep or whatever. But the worst thing was when all of a sudden you'd hear this little thump, and I was like, oh crap, because what would happen is the mouse would like slip between the wall, like the wall and the drywall, and then it couldn't get out. And then it just died. And then you'd have it decaying, and it was a delightful odoriferous experience we'd have. It's just,
we had a house years ago. This was when I was still a college student. We were living in a house that had a mouse in the walls that would kind of do a drumbeat thing, had a pretty good rhythm actually. And, I'd be studying long into the night. Marcia would have gone to bed and gone to sleep, and she would wake up and she would see me over there, like tapping out signals to the mouse. That's when she realized, you've been awake too long, John. You need to go to sleep.
That's right.
I kind of have to agree with Marcia on that one, John.
We did. We hired a cat at that point who came in and made quick work of the mouse.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in my home, with all the squirrel, I mean, I'm surrounded by, I probably have 50 oak trees, and they're all around the house. And squirrels are everywhere. And they actually have an I-35 going across my roof, because I can sit in the office or in the studio and I'll hear this. But right behind it, there'll be like 3 or 4 more squirrels. And they're like having a road race or drag race up there.
I would just observe that if it was an I-35, you wouldn't hear anything, because they would just be lined up, stopped, packed together.
Oh, that's true.
Unable to move.
Right. Maybe the Autobahn or something. You got
Squirrel Autobahn.
That's right. Well, at least you don't have at least the house isn't covered in tarantulas, because that can happen here.
Really?
There was a woman. This woman was my daughter's second grade teacher, and they got this great deal on this house, like near Madrid, New Mexico, and they didn't realize that it was in the tarantula migration path.
That's not fun.
She woke up one morning and the yard was moving, and they were all over the house. And
Lord,
yeah. So
I won't be sleeping tonight. You just put the image. Well,
I want to mention that I have a message from our guest was supposed to be Spike Gillespie tonight, and she is having trouble logging in, but she's still trying. So we'll see what happens.
She's got to save us from our talk of mice and tarantulas.
Well, I mean, there's more to talk about. I actually, there's a rather serious problem that I'm aware of, and it's since after Joe Biden was elected, gradually there were fewer and fewer Dr. Pepper Zeros available in the store. And at this point, you cannot find Dr. Pepper Zero anywhere. Wow. Occasionally you can find like a 20-ounce bottle for $2, which is crazy. And that's excessive too. That's a sign of inflation.
Boy,
so I think this is a serious problem, huh?
I missed that headline. My mom was a dyed-in-the-wool Dr. Pepper addict. I mean, she didn't have Dr. Pepper in the house. She'd want to know why, and children would be set out on a Dr. Pepper.
Well, I can totally relate to that. I had the same problem. And, I mean, it's a serious issue. I don't really want to drink one that's loaded with sugar. And the only thing I can think of is that there's a shortage of zero sugar. There's a shortage of non-sugar.
That is a conflict in terminology there.
There is another thing that goes along with this. It's not just Dr. Pepper Zero. It's also Skinny Pop. There's a terrible shortage of Skinny Pop. You just
Wow.
can't, you especially can't find it in certain flavors. Like they have a lime flavored skinny pop that's really pretty good. Can't find that anymore. It's gone. Occasionally you can find kettle corn.
Right.
Well,
Maybe it's the blockading truckers. I don't know.
yeah, the dang truckers.
Well, I mean, I think that obviously, I mean, this all started after Joe Biden was elected.
Right.
I don't understand why he doesn't do something about it. Yeah, you know, he should send out the gazpacho to, oh, there she comes.
Hi, she's connecting to audio.
Yep, she's coming in. There she is.
Welcome, Spike.
Now you're connected.
We're seeing.
Sorry. Hi.
Hello.
How are you all?
We're good.
We've been warming up the audience. We're your opening act. We're like the really bad comedian who comes in to warm up before the headline band comes on. So you're the
Sorry.
headliner.
I have had company all day and blah blah blah. I'm phoning in from a 12-foot 30-year-old casita camper with 5 dogs. We've been
Wow, that's great.
We've been having some technology issues and it's too boring. But every time we try to switch a phone carrier, how does it work out for us, everybody?
Not so good.
That's why it took me 18 years to divorce AT&T and whatever. Anyway, I apologize for my technical difficulties.
Well, there
You
are
guys want
no.
to hear about how fucked up Smithville is?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the two things. We want to talk about what the last straw was and how that went. And then we also want to talk about the tiny houses.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear about the serious degradation in wedding parties. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so much. Y'all, I just want to preface this by saying I know that I have been a drama magnet. I know how to create drama. But I swear to you, I'm living in a camper now. I literally hired a team of people so I would not have to deal with that bride. Like I recognize my limits, my impatience, my mental health issues, and I don't like brides anymore.
Good for
And
you.
she sliced through every single person. She insulted the manager. She insulted the ranch hand. She insulted the other ranch hand. And it's amazing to me that this still works so well. If you walk up to a customer, and this is what I did. I said, hey, Kim, because that was her name. I said, I've got one rule here at the ranch. Do not fucking shit on my employees. Now, that did not get the conversation going too well, but we have been so indoctrinated, and I think pandemic has made it worse. This woman scheduled an outdoor February wedding. It was 24 degrees out, and Omicron was peaking. And she found a crumb in the refrigerator and she acted like I had just stabbed her dog. It was insane.
Wow.
A crumb, you say?
I mean,
How did the crumb taste?
Right. And here's the thing, like I told her this whole thing. I told her this at the beginning. We are not the 4 seasons. We are the 1 season. You know what? If you step in dog poop in the house, then you should thank dog. The dog is alive. I mean, it's not really like that, but you know what I mean? We're a working ranch. We have cattle grazing. If she wanted a hospital sterile setting, I'm sure that there's a Marriott somewhere that she could book, you know?
Yeah, there's so many fancy venues in the hill country that are,
the other thing is, it's like I told her we just dropped $100,000 improving the property, not just for her, of course, but I'm saying like when she booked it, I've got a brand new iron fence across the whatever. It's looking great out here. Right. And she had to come in and shit on me and my employees. And I not only, and her wedding planner is standing in my driveway saying, I'm an attorney. I can read contracts. And my first thought is, well, if you're an attorney and you have to moonlight as a wedding planner for this woman, you must not have done very well. Like, where did you go to law school, bitch?
Right.
And that's what really set me off. Like when she started acting like there would be legal actions taking, this is where all my childhood triggers are. I'm like, do not threaten me and don't threaten me on my property. So I loved it. I went into my little cabin here and I read the contract. I'm like, I wonder what the contract does say regarding this. And the most awesome thing was that it very clearly states no vendor may set foot on the property until 4 hours before the wedding. And she was there the day before the wedding. So she, with her great legal skill, violated the contract.
There you go.
There's a lot of that going around,
Oh God, I know. She should run for office. I mean,
There you are.
I have a theory that a lot of this has been caused by the way that media, being movies, television, whatever, has begun to portray extreme everything, extreme wedding, extreme marriage. And everybody says, well, that's the way I'm supposed to be. So I have to, I can't just come in and get married. I have to be an asshole and get married.
There's that. And then I think also there's all the pent up pandemic frustration and they're just taking it out like wherever they can. I spent money. And I think another piece of it for me is I am a Buddhist, somewhat of a pacifist. I'm from New Jersey, so, not perfect. But I watch these shows. I lost it already. Oh, is that I watch shows like Mr. In Between and Succession and Yellowstone and Ozark, and it gets into me. I got so Beth Dutton on that woman's ass, and it's not really who I am, but they pushed me so hard, and I am blaming them. To be clear, I'm using blaming language because it's their fucking fault. And I was jumping up and down on my deck screaming, I hope it rains and freezes and everybody gets Omicron. Like, that is not who I am. That's all me.
Beth Dutton is perfectly sweet and fine with Rip. Just keep that in mind. She's not like that with everybody.
Just really, that's funny. I have the guy who runs my ranch. I'm not allowed to talk about him, but I call him Rampe. That's how you say rip in Spanish. So it's a little Spanish pun. Rampe.
That's right. Well,
go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
You want him? I can name names now. I mean, I could name names before getting back to Smithville.
Yeah, that's it. I thought we'd shift gears back to Smithville because I'm so interested in what finally happened that caused you to leave.
I'll tell you what it was. It was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back. But I had a couple things going on. One was the painter who told me it would take 3 weeks and $10,000 had already taken $12,000 from me, was not even a third of the way done the house. So there's that. So they're grinding on the house every day. And I'm getting told the story that it's going to be a Victorian restoration. I'm like, A, I didn't sign up for that. And B, there's paint splattered everywhere. Like, it was mansplaining with a vagina. That's what it was. Yeah. And so that got to me. And then a great friend of mine said, hey, she saw that I had a COVID scare. I didn't get it, I don't think, but I had a close call. And she said, hey, do you need another vaccine? I'll come out and give you one. I said, no, I'm like vaxxed and boosted. But she said, if anybody needs one, I'll come out. And, Smithville has a lot of people who either aren't vaxxed or they won't admit they're vaxxed or whatever the case. And there are homebound people. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of connections, and I posted on the Give It and Get It. There's a Facebook page for Smithville. I said, hey, if anybody wants a vaccination, I'll bring one right to your front door. So I get a call from Janice Bruno, who sits on the city council. She calls me Jacqueline because once she asked me my birth certificate name, and I told her, and it's just weird to me. It's too personal. I feel like she's grabbing my boobs every time she calls me Jacqueline.
Right.
But anyway, which of course, never mind. I was going to make a joke, but that's enough. So I got this idea. I was going to have my birthday party I had turned the living room and the parlor of the Smithville, the whorehouse, into an art gallery. And I was going to distribute my art in exchange for donations to launch my nonprofit, which I just started. It was going to be a win-win-win. But then Omicron is just slamming people, and it's not responsible for me to let people into my home during this thing. So I decided we were having a jazz outdoor concert anyway. I'll just, a lot of people had expressed interest in getting that vaccine. So when Janice called, she said, I can't remember if she talked to me, and she said something like, well, you know, I tried to do this, and the emergency medical, whatever, people came after me, and you better have all your ducks in a line, and blah, 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 blah. And I made the choice. I was really conscious of this. The alarm going off in my head is, oh, somebody has gone to city council and told them I'm hosting a vax party, as if this is breaking the law, you know? Okay, so that's part one. And then after I get off the phone with her, I called my friend who's a nurse, and I said, hey, I don't, like, do you have all the qualifications to do this in Bastrop County? And she said, I'll look into it. And then I thought, duh, Maddie Eden rents my outbuilding. Maddie Eden puts on vax clinics all the time. So I said, Maddie, my birthday is the 10th. Would you do a vax clinic in the driveway as my birthday party? We'll have jazz, we'll bring people out. And that is what we did, but not before I got 3 more phone calls from Janice Bruno, which I let go to voicemail, text messages. Why aren't you returning my calls? You better have everything lined up. And I finally texted back, and I was like, you know what? Fuck you. Why don't you show up at my vax party? And why don't you bring the cops with you? It'll look great in the documentary. Like, that was my final fucking straw. We've got Stan Dickwad Gertis, who's just so creepy, beyond creepy. Mm-hmm. He, you know, I don't get me too started on that guy, you know? So he's a council member who was granted a permit by the city of Smithville to host a parade to drive me out of town, which they keep backpedaling and denying. But David Repka, the chief of police, told me to my face that Sam Gertis was in his office being really mean and heated. And he was the one who tried to call her off. She immediately went home, opened a Facebook account, and tried to do backpedaling. Like, this is just about blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. That I cannot stand bullshitters. So my brief stay in Smithville begins with a city council member trying to drive me out of town using a little train. How fucked up is that? And then it gets bookended by Janice Bruno, who runs the medical clinic, which, as I understand it, is supposed to bring healthcare to low-income people. And she is fucking, I'm not even going to say pardon my French. She's fucking refusing me a vax party to which many, many people wanted to come. They were acting like I was running around. Obviously my blood pressure's up over this. They were acting like I was sneaking up behind conservative infants, because we all know infants have political theories, and like jabbing them with liberalism. I'm like, you people are fucking crazy. When are you going to get it? I'm not part of the patriarchy. I'm a feminist, and my hobbies are getting teenagers abortions and smashing the patriarchy. You know, I didn't have a vax party to be political in Smithville. I did it because I said, who wants it? And a whole bunch of people said, I do.
Right.
Maybe they think that mRNA includes critical race theory somehow.
Right.
I mean, it's just, you know what? And then you want to talk about Smithville and race. You know, there's an active KKK out there, and it's a friend of mine. Oh my gosh, she came out around Christmas, which they have this big gingerbread wooden cutout gingerbreads. Like, you know, Smitty's the big guy, and if I figured out the one thing to do, the one photo op in Smithville is, you go stand in front of Smitty, the gigantic gingerbread guy. Did we talk about this last time? And you're standing with a friend. I think so. You are Smitty's nutsack. Come to Smithville and be a gingerbread scrotum. Like, that's what Smithville has going for it.
Well, there's a real tourist attraction.
So then they have these gingerbread cutouts in front of all the shops, and they each decorate them differently. But down at the train station, they have like dozens and dozens of these gingerbread people that are about, I don't know, about my height, 5'5". And if you look at them, this friend who was visiting, we're walking downtown at night and the lights are shining on it. And she said, my God, it looks like they rounded up all the people of color and are getting ready to put them on the train. I
Oh
mean,
my
it's
God.
so, it is just so, I know that it was done with good intention, but given the history of that town and the current events, it literally looks like we've rounded up all the brown people and all the black people and get the fuck out of here.
The gingerbread Holocaust.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of weird, but it's rural Texas, I guess, which I don't want to sound like I'm like being, what is it, dismissive of or like down on rural people, because there's a lot of really smart, cool people who live in rural Texas. But the people who do weird shit like that tend to be in rural Texas too.
But
Yep.
but I like to differentiate this. Like, I'm back in Garfield. I've never been happier in my life. You know, there's so much weird shit happens out here. It's like I hear people in their muscle cars speeding off to get their breakfast meth every morning. You know,
Right.
it's just like there's a lot that happens in this community. But the difference between this community and Smithville is people mind their business. And the only time that they don't mind I've had a couple of dudes stop me and like say, you're not taking care of your horse, right? Or so, like, there's always going to be some dick, and no matter where you go.
Right.
But overwhelmingly, and I know many, many, many people in my community because I host weddings and funerals at no charge for my neighbors, as one should. And we all know that we are politically wildly different. But I host their weddings and funerals. They show up with their chainsaws. We
Right.
inquire, how are you? How's your sick husband? Or how are you since your husband died? And I have this friend who's the biggest Trump waving conservative conspiracy theorist in the world. We loved to meet at the Comfort Cafe and hang. I know I always sound like I protest too much, but to me, Smithville may be representative of a lot of small towns in Texas, but Garfield is really different.
Right.
Even though if you were to like vote for vote at the polls, you'd see Garfield's bright red, but you wouldn't know it to stop by our convenience store, you know?
Right.
You know, when I think about it, I shot my mouth off about rural Texas, but really, I don't go to rural Texas that much, and I don't really know. I think there might be perfectly great people in much of the state and where I grew up. Scoop and I grew up in the same little town. It wasn't very big at all. So, and it was kind of, and you know, a lot of rural areas around there. And I don't remember people getting into each other's business that much where we grew up. I know they talked about other people a lot, but I don't think they, you know, actively tried to derail them.
Well, you know,
I feel, well, go
gossip
ahead.
is a big deal in small towns, and it used to not be all that nasty. It was like, oh, did you see what she was wearing or what he was doing? But now it's become, did you see what he voted for?
It's
and I
true.
would
And
also wonder
many
if-
people told me that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, just really quick, I was just gonna, I was just curious if, you know, you have to, because I've lived in several different small towns across the country, and, you know, sometimes you get these commissioners who are entrenched. They've been entrenched there for years, and they bully everybody. It's not just, you know, the different people, like everybody's afraid to, you know, so it depends on the town you're in. You know, I just, it seems like, I'm just curious how long these commissioner types have been in Smithville. Have they sort of, sounds like they've consolidated their power?
My sense, yeah, and remember, I was only there for 7 months, but my sense is that like there's this, I've already been told there's a group of 40 bullies, like they know that they're on a list, but that it's, as I understand it, right, I always do want to qualify because I'm giving you stuff that I heard while I was under duress 6 months ago. But I feel like there's a group of people out there whose attitude is, my people got here, my people killed the Indians and your people didn't. I think we maybe talked about this last time. Like your people, Spike, were making soft pretzels in Philly. My people were, murdering the Indians. We're better. And you don't
Yeah.
have any stake on this land. We do. And as I also understand it, don't know if this is true, but I have heard that quite a few of them, they have land in their family and then they get, royalties, and so they're there, they have money, they have this life of ease, they do not want things to change,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's weird because I actually have a lot in common with them, I mean, whatever, I am so glad to be out of there. Oh, and I want to throw in too that, as you know, Maggie, I feel like, not to say that you guys don't, but I feel Maggie and I probably know this more personally, is had I shown up in Smithville, if I were a 6'2" dude, if I were a 6'2" black dude, or if I were a woman with a husband, any of those things, or if I was a woman who didn't mysteriously have a huge pile of money that I shouldn't
Right.
have because I'm a woman alone and I'm a liberal, what man gave me that money? Well, no
Right.
man gave me that money. I'm a businesswoman,
Right.
but
Right.
I got persecuted. They felt I was an easy target. I'm a vulnerable woman. They're going to scare me. They're going to threaten to shoot me. This guy, Wes, I'll say his name now too. I can't remember his last name. His wife works at these are people who work for the city who are threatening to kill me. You know
Oh
what?
my
And now that
God.
I'm gone, and now that I can really, really see the amount of pressure they put on me, I contacted the ACLU and I filed a complaint. I am, if you know any good civil rights, I am of two minds. My number one is I'm safe, I'm happy, I'm at my ranch, I'm retired, I'm financially secure. I shouldn't give Smithville another fucking thought, like not even look in the rear view. Another part of me feels like, you know what? This is not okay. That was actually criminal activity. My
Right.
civil rights were violated. I became a prisoner in my own home. And
Right.
there's a huge paper trail that begins with the chief of police contacting me that he's worried about me. So I'm
Right.
like, if the entire government can jump in and participate in persecuting me, that's like, I'm like, oh my God, it was even crazier than I realized when I was there. I was just holding on for dear life.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that
hard to know what to
is
do.
government.
I I've had this thing about I could be like I'm comfortable and retired, uh, and aside from the fact that I'm uh, operating with Scoop and Maggie is a media company with millions of readers and listeners, I should say. No, but I'm kind of retired, comfortable, and there's a lot of weird political shit going on. Where 20 years ago, I would have just jumped right into the middle of it, and I would have been flailing my arms, and I would have been taking names and calling people out. And now I keep dithering about: do I want to do shit like that, or do I want to just kind of sit back and enjoy my retirement? And it's really hard to decide. I mean, in some ways, you kind of want to just not deal with it. And in other ways, it's like, if I don't deal with it, who's going to deal with it?
Exactly. And I go back and forth on that. It's not my job to save the world. But you know what? I always sound like Al Gore when I talk about my internet experiences. But honestly, this is not bragging rights. I was one of the first people to take an online stalking case to court. My estranged husband was in fact stalking me. It was highly provable. But nonetheless, the judge was sympathetic to abusive men. She had a history of that. And also the judge knew nothing of technology. This was 1996, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
the guy I was married to was big in the internet. I was relatively well into it. The judge didn't know jack shit. The short version of it is that guy put me in such terror. I moved to Knoxville to live in a hotel with a Medco key lock on the front door with my son. It made my life so stressed out. And I was like, I am taking that guy to court. I have a permanent restraining order against him. He violated it. I'm going to make him fucking pay for this. His rich family paid for the most unctuous, disgusting cunt lawyer in Austin who showed up and with a few greasy words got the whole thing dismissed. I had spent an additional like 6 months under duress. I probably spent $10,000 taking this guy to court. And I remember the upshot was only like 1 or 2 friends who knew both of us agreed to come to court to testify what a lunatic he was. Because he had a pretty big job in the community and people didn't want to get involved. And that friend of mine, when she went to HEB a couple weeks later, the cashier said, "Hey, I saw you in court the other day." Because, there was a bunch of court cases going on. And Kate said, "Yep." And the woman said, "That guy was so guilty." Like the HEB, everybody knew the guy was guilty. So now when I'm in a situation where I can file a lawsuit and might even have a really good chance of like, get some attention on the front page of the New York Times, show people that this Stan Gertis guy, he seems like nothing. He's not even, I don't like Stan Gertis, to put it mildly. But the reason I take him seriously is not him, the guy. He's just a blank puppet. That's what happened with George W. Bush.
Mhm.
Like everybody thought Ann Richards was a shoo-in. And I think it shocked them, just like with the Hillary and the orange asshole thing. We cannot be, despite not participating in the patriarchy, we cannot let our guard down. It's every time it happens, something bad happens. The Republican Party, they'll take a guy like Stan Gertis, they'll stuff him full of Rick Perry and Greg Abbott and Trump, who he worked for, and they'll just shove their hand up his ass and puppet him right up the line.
Ann Richards and Hillary Clinton have a lot in common because Ann Richards and Hillary Clinton have a lot in common because they both underestimated the sort of really force within the Republican Party and the lengths those people will go to.
Yeah, right. And I think that guy is an absolute potentially good example of that. And that's why I do have a personal vendetta. Like, don't get me wrong. I would like to make him miserable just because, you know what, fuck that guy. But politically, I retired from being a commentator, from writing or any of it, and I'm back now. And I will do anything. If I really hope he just gets squashed in the primary. But if that doesn't happen, if he's up against Maddie, I'm pretty sure she's running uncontested. You know what? I'm gonna do everything I can. I'm gonna continue I'll try to find a lawyer if I don't hear back from the ACLU. I'll send opinion pieces to the New York Times. I do think that Stan Gertis, the person, isn't dangerous. I think I could just sneeze on him and he would pass out. I think he's completely puppeted by his wife. But, when these political machines get a hold of somebody, they're just going to shove them right up the line. We all know that it was Cheney, not Bush. Oh, I got to say, on a lighter note, I'm getting a little too serious. Molly Ivins had a party every month. It was called the Final Friday Party. It was at her house in Travis Heights. And there was a portion of every Final Friday party where people would get up for the entertainment. They'd sing or read a poem or just whatever. And I wrote a haiku once. It's the best haiku I ever wrote. And I performed it at Molly Ivins' house. And I'm going to recite it for you because I've memorized it. It's called George W. Bush's Colonoscopy. And it goes like this. Polyps cannot grow when Dick Cheney's hand is up your puppety ass. Thank you. And that's it. It's just all puppet.
Oh, I love that. Since Spike, since you're back as a commentator, you said, I can think of one media outlet that would be pleased and honored to have you as often as you're willing to inflict yourself on us.
Right on. We're living in a world where you can have a headline like this.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd like to say too, there's something about, I'm not close to retiring yet, but I am involved here in Taos County on a number of things. One of the things that came across the wire that they were trying to sneak through, these developers of Taos Ski Valley, was there's all this money coming from the infrastructure bill, right? And, that could help a lot of people in this very small valley. But this, all of a sudden, everybody caught wind of a town council meeting where they were being petitioned to write a letter of support to this proposal that was being put forward by the Taos Ski Valley. Part of it was to take 10 million to build a new gondola in the ski valley and all this crap. So anyway, people caught wind of it. We all dialed in and we caught them by surprise. And the Taos Ski Valley people were using like pictures of people like Mayor Domos on an acequia with people, and it's all happy and everything, using it without their permission, saying that these groups had agreed to it. If nobody had been there, they would have just rammed this through. And so they've tabled it now. The CEO from the Ski Valley tabled it, but that's the thing. They're just used to it. Like, hey, I can just do everything.
It's Ozark, it's Yellowstone. I know all these
Right.
shows are just like it's the Shakespearean model, but you've got like the king father, you've got the feisty daughter, a couple sons, and somebody's gonna Cain and Abel it. Like it's, and even though I know it's fiction, I swear it feels more and more like reality. Like all these backroom deals and shit. I just started season 3 of Ozark, and I'm like, this is crazy. And yet,
Yeah.
It's a little scary. When you considering that all of these things that we've been watching for years, I would always kind of assume, well, that's fiction,
Right.
that kind of stuff doesn't really happen. It does really happen. It does. And, you're like, this thing you're talking about, Maggie, is like if you've watched Yellowstone, there's a character played by Piper Perabo, who's an activist,
Oh yeah.
and they're like kind of trying to fix that stuff too. Well, she gets tossed in jail. I mean,
Right.
Yep.
Right.
and that could happen, to anybody who actually tries to derail a project that has a lot of money behind it. And I know how much money is behind the Taos Ski Valley thing because every 10 minutes on television, I see a commercial that the state of New Mexico puts on there. Terrible commercial with this guy kind of walking around talking about, this is the guy who it's like the ghost of the founder of the Taos Ski Valley or whatever.
The Ski Valley, owns and has brought in that Taos airline that, so anyway, but a really good book about that whole thing, like of the activists standing up and the trouble you can get into, is the second book of John Nichols' New Mexico trilogy. It's called The Magic Journey. It's the book after Milagro Beanfield War. And it's all about that, like people standing up and the big money and all that. And, but as I've gotten to know people, a lot of these people I've met were who he based these characters on. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, no, this is interesting. Yeah.
I've got I have a quick hyperlink, Maggie. Supposedly that Milagro Beanfield War was written in the Smithville, in the whorehouse.
I saw that.
Wait, were you the one who said you heard it was written in New Mexico, or was that someone else?
And probably somebody else. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it was written in that house, but it was just when you mentioned it, I thought, yes.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he lives here still. So but he also has written.
You should ask him.
Yeah. Well, when I meet him or whatever, but yeah, because he's written a number of screenplays too. So he's done a lot of screenplay writing. So who knows? He could have been, I don't know. Well, I wonder if he was involved in Best Little Whorehouse or something, since the Grange.
Yeah. I see what you mean. What a great, I like how your mind works. That's great.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, now I have to search this out.
I have a friend who's a PI, and he was telling me a story the other day about this. This is not even an official case. He was just helping some people find each other. And he's like, well, if this and this matches up, it can only mean two things. And I'm like, really? Because I can't even think of one. And then he tells me, I'm like, whoa, like theories. I love theories.
Right. Right. Patterns.
I'm trying to. I keep thinking I can just look it up, that I can find out where the Milagro Beanfield War was written. But
No,
I
you're-
looked it up and I couldn't find it.
yeah. Well, I'll see what I can do. If I find out, I'll let y'all know. So,
Well, Spike, now that you're back in the countryside,
Yeah.
I'm up in the northern part of Bastrop County, but I'm in just following for a long time the whole adventure down in Bastrop around the Confederate monuments that they've been trying to find a home for. It's like, you know,
Oh,
it's like you've got all these, homeless people, but you're trying to spend a bunch of money to find a home for the Daughters of the Confederacy monument celebrating all those dead traitors. It's like, come on,
hey,
people.
you know what? I know this isn't about me, but as a side note, if you can get those to the ranch, I will knit them all clothing and I will turn them into different characters.
that would be awesome.
I would fucking love to repurpose them, and I'll make them into like a bunch of like gay guys, and I'll make them each holding a rainbow flag, a black
Oh,
lives matter.
yeah.
I will do a flag monument because that would also like sort of be a tribute to Smithville as well with the flag.
Right.
Yeah.
I've known some radical knitters over the time and radical crocheters, and some of the things that I've seen them do is like, that's amazing. It's much better than whatever it was that they covered up, and
Yes.
I think that would be a great repurposing of those horrific monuments.
I am serious. If you can find someone to get me those, because I would love to make the ranch, like, I'm not going to be the snake farm or whatever, but imagine if it was land of the repurposed Confederate douchebags.
Yeah. Well, up here in Elgin, they found one of those, that was kind of hidden in a bunch of bushes in downtown Elgin, and the locals just like, well, why is that there? And they found that some racist back in the 20s thought it was a great idea, and they had no trouble getting rid of it. It's like, come on, this is the 21st century, and
Right.
this monument to hate out there, and they got it away, and there wasn't any big stink about it.
well, the
just
problem
do the
is
right
that the
thing.
Confederacy is coming back.
Mm. Well, y'all are in luck because even though my short-term memory sucks, everything makes me think of a really stupid joke. And so relating to the statue in the bushes, once upon a time there were these two statues, a naked man and a naked woman, because this joke was written during heteronormative times, and they were reaching toward each other for 100 years, 150 years. And one day the voice of Goddess comes from the sky and says, hey, you guys, because God's from New Jersey. Hey, you guys, I'm going to make you alive for 1 hour. Poof, they're alive. They race off to the bushes, and you can hear all this laughing and like all this racket. And then you listen a little closer, and one of them saying, okay, now it's my turn. You hold the pigeon down while I sit on it.
Oh, no.
Now that's funny.
That's awesome.
That should be in the Bible.
There it was. That's where I got it.
Yeah, with the repurposed Confederate statues, it reminds me of when everybody started collecting the old muffler men in the 90s. And then putting new things in their hands,
I think it would be just such a great thing to be the repurposed ranch.
That would
And
be
then
awesome.
one day every year, whatever some big Confederate anniversary is, we'll put up a big black curtain around the entire ranch, and we'll tell people we're honoring Confederates. We'll charge them $100 a head. We'll take all that money and we'll give it to the ACLU.
Oh, I will help you on that one. Just let me know. I'll even go out and kidnap some of those monuments. Yeah, that's great. It's a home for wayward monuments. I mean,
Right.
how could you avoid contributing to that?
So I think we only have about 5 minutes left. I wanted to hear about the tiny house village or the tiny
Oh,
house.
yeah.
Yes.
But I'm ADHD, guys. I've already decided not to do it. I'll tell you what.
Oh, no.
No, listen. Here's what I thought. Okay, I thought about this. My French friend, there's this French expression, I have it written down somewhere, but it means the squash dog. It's an idiom. And it's that like, do you know this idiom, Maggie? It's like, I'm the person who, anytime somebody has something like, oh, I just found this dog run over in the road, it's about to die, I gotta run. And they leave me, like, I'm a squash dog person. I have a big soft heart, except when I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
And I do have a ton of compassion because of my circumstances, right? I grew up in poverty,
Right.
abuse, blah, 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 blah. So I'm
Right.
never gonna, and I also grew up, I was telling someone the other day, Jesus was my biggest influence. Like, I reject organized religion. I don't believe in the magic of the whatever Trinity, yada, yada, resurrection, but the Jesus that was presented to me in the 70s, they were giving out those hippie Bibles, remember, like the New
Right.
Word or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's really cool. Like, he's friends with everybody. His best friend's a hooker. Like, what's not to love?
Right.
And I really imprinted on that. And I truly believe, and believe me, Smithville tested my patience, and so did that bride. I'm not anywhere near perfect, but like, I feel this. I have abundance. I have 30 acres. I have enough money to not work if I live, carefully for a long time. Why would I not want to help others? Because people have helped me. Here's the answer, 2 answers. I rarely solicit feedback on Facebook, but I get a lot. I ask people, like, what do you think? And many, many, many people agree with me that the number one problem is vetting. You are always going to, no matter how well you vet, you are always going to wind up with somebody who's going to be the closet drunk or the loudmouth or the Mrs. Kravitz. So then I thought, I'm not responsible to house everybody, even though I have this possible solution. But then I looked around me, and at the ranch now, I am able to afford to pay. I've got these 2 young guys, these ranch hands, and I love it. They insist that they voted for Trump and they're conservative. I love them. They do everything for me. They would empty my poop bucket in the camper if I asked them. They're darling. And they love me because I give them my scone business. So they're here, right? They're not just feeding the animals. I am giving them my baking business and all the infrastructure, and they are going to be financially independent by the time they are 28 years old. And I love that. And I have Rompe, the head of the ranch. He brings in his workers. Everybody gets paid a universal living wage. I have my assistant, Dave, and then I give free housing to a school teacher who happens to be a person of color and who happens to be a teacher in a high-risk special ed classroom.
Right.
So, I'm not saying any of this like, oh, I'm saying spike, but I have found ways already to positively contribute to the housing needs of others. And I think what I'll do is organically grow it.
Right. And I think I would, like, you don't need my unsolicited advice.
I'll take solicited.
Okay. You've got such an incredible sanctuary there. It's a haven of peace. It's a haven of safety for you and all those animals you rescue and everything. And I just, as somebody who has been a squish dog many times, like, I'm just in a place now of cultivating that sanctuary and keeping that bubble. And just like what you're talking about, it's these things that are just naturally evolve, that augment and just add to the flow of everything instead of taking away. And so that's
yes. And so, like, instead of trying to force it or say, hey, I'm doing this big village, it's also possible that this ETJ might get annexed by the city. I mean, the sprawl continues, right? And the city, I'm pretty sure that the city can annex it. I mean, I don't think Bastrop can annex it because we're in Travis County. But whatever the case, like, I could have this dream idea and I could build a hippie community, and then the government could come in and say, you know what, we're fining you or everybody off the land. Right. And I also looked around and I realized My mortgage is very small here at the ranch. It's less than what most people probably pay in Austin for a house. Because
Mhm.
I got it as it was an abandoned meth lab. I got a good deal on it. But I'm realizing I do not have to work so hard at all in any area of my life. I worked very hard as a political activist, a good person, a parent. It's over.
Well, I have a concept. I think we need to have Spike cloned and spread across the country because all the stuff that's being spread across the country right now is pretty poisonous. So I think Spike clones would be the wave of the future.
That's very sweet, but there's some bitchy glitches that need to be worked out first.
We can live with that.
Everything
was
is always
fun,
a
guys.
work in progress. This was great. This was a
Yeah.
blast. Thanks so
I'm
much,
so
Spike.
sorry about my technical problems. It's always something.
That's okay. Come back soon.
I'd love to.
We'll ping you and we'll set something up.
Thanks. It's always so fun. I really appreciate y'all.
Well, we appreciate you too. This is just great.
Yeah.
Thanks
take
so
care. Bye.
much.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.